Hello and welcome to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. My name is Natalie Himmelrich. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is completely self-funded, produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. Consider making a small donation to support the podcast. Go to bit.ly/support, capital G, capital T, and podcast. I repeat, bit.ly/supportgt podcast. Thank you so much. And for more information, please visit Natalie's website, join the podcast's Instagram page, and subscribe to the newsletter to receive updates on future episodes. So welcome to this special series on the many faces of trauma. In each episode, we'll explore one trauma type in a clear, gentle way, what it is, how it can show up in daily life, and one small step that can help your nervous system feel a little safer. Nothing here is meant to diagnose you, and you're always invited to take what fits and leave the rest. And because this is trauma work, we'll end every episode with a short grounding practice you can do anywhere. Today we'll talk about the terms small t and big T trauma, why people use them, how they can help, and how they can also create shame or comparison. No graphic detail. If you feel activated or numb while listening, you can pause and come back later. So why this conversation matters? The reason I want to talk about small t and big T is simple. These terms are often used to help people feel validated. But for many people, the opposite happens. They hear small t and think, so mine doesn't count. Or they hear big T and think, I'm not allowed to call it trauma unless it was dramatic enough. The episode is about stepping out of that trap. Because trauma is not an award for worse suffering. Trauma is a nervous system experience. And when we understand that we can stop comparing, we can start supporting. So what people usually mean by big T and small t. Traditionally, when people say big T trauma, they usually mean events that most people would recognize as clearly traumatic. They're often sudden, intense, or life-threatening. Things like serious accidents, natural disaster, severe violence, or experiences where your life or bodily integrity was at risk. You might have listened to episode 161, which describes a big T trauma. When people say small t trauma, they often mean experiences that might not be life-threatening, but still feel overwhelming or felt overwhelming, especially when they were repeated or they happened during a vulnerable stage of your life. For example, chronic criticism, emotional neglect, humiliation, bullying, persisting instability, or relational environments where you didn't feel safe to be yourself. So these terms were meant to be useful like a shorthand, but here is the issue. People start using them as a measuring stick, and that's where the harm begins. There is a missing middle. So let's have a look at what is the missing middle. It's the huge space where many people live. Nothing that looks dramatic on paper, or no single headline event, but a nervous system that is shaped by constant adaptation. This is where chronic stress, relational insecurity, emotional abandonment, and long-term pressure can quietly train the body to stay on alert. And here's the important part. Even if an event isn't life-threatening, it can still be traumatic when it involves lack of choice, lack of protection, lack of support, repeated exposure, or being alone with something too big for your system. So rather than small and big, I sometimes refer to or prefer single incident trauma, which is one overwhelming shock, cumulative trauma, many smaller hits over time, relational trauma, where safety in connection was compromised, or chronic stress without an exit, which is where your environment might have become a threat. So that language tends to create clarity without the ranking. Let me paint you a picture of the comparison trap. Imagine someone who grew up in a home where there was no physical violence and no obvious crisis. From the outside, it looks fine. But inside the home, emotions weren't welcome. Crying was mocked. Needs were inconvenient. And the safest strategy was to stay quiet, be helpful, and not take up space. Sounds familiar? As an adult, this person struggles with panic before conflict, with people-pleasing, with a deep fear of being too much. They feel shame for having needs, or they might not even know that they have them. They can't often rest without guilt, and their bodies often tense, even during good moments. And they might ask themselves, it wasn't trauma, nothing that bad happened. But their nervous system learned something powerful over time. Being myself isn't safe. Connection has conditions. And that is not small, that is shaping. And that is the missing middle. So let's have a look how small t and big T can help when it is used well. To be fair, these terms can help in a few ways. So one, they normalize a range of experiences. They remind people that trauma isn't only the most extreme events. Two, they provide an entry point for learning. So some people need a gentle doorway into trauma language. And three, they can reduce isolation. Someone may finally say, oh, that's why this still affects me. Which can also help in self-compassion if that might have happened or not happened to you. So yes, there's value here in those terms, but only if we don't use the terms to rank or invalidate. So let's have a look how small t and big T can harm and what to do instead. So here is how these terms often backfire. So the first one is the comparison trap. Some people might say, I didn't earn the right to be affected. This keeps people silent, and silence keeps trauma stuck. So instead ask, what happened inside of me and what do I need now? 2. The minimization reflex. It was only small t. So people say this while their body is clearly in fight or flight or shutdown. So instead, notice nervous system cues. Let the body be the truth and tell you the truth. And the third one is the over-identification trap. Sometimes people hear big T and start thinking they are permanently damaged. And remember, instead, responses are adaptive. The system can update. So what might be a better framework? Here's a simple one that you can carry. Not, was it big enough, but was it too much for my system at the time? And did I have support, choice, and protection? That question is compassionate and precise. So now my favorite, the polyvagal lens. So let's have a look at why ranking doesn't work. Because from a polyvagal perspective, the nervous system doesn't rank experiences by how they look on paper. The nervous system responds to perceived threat and safety. So two people can experience the same event, and one can stay connected and supported, where the other is alone, powerless, or overwhelmed. And that is because their nervous system encodes it differently. So if your body reacts, if you go into mobilized protection, which is anxiety, anger, vigilance, or shut down, which can be felt as numbness, fog, or collapse, that is a signal. Not proof you're weak, not proof the event was big enough, just a signal that your system is in protection. So if the terms small t and big T have ever made you second guess yourself, here are a few reframes that tend to feel more accurate and less shaming. So maybe instead of small t, try or ask yourself, cumulative, was it built over time? Relational, did it happen in connection? And chronic, was it ongoing? And instead of big T, try or ask yourself, single incident. Is this one overwhelming single incident or event? And acute, is it or was it intense and time limited? And instead of asking, does it count, try, what was the impact on me? Did I have support and protection? Did I have time and space to recover? This moves you out of comparison and into nervous system truth, because impact, support, and recovery tells you far more than labels ever will. So let's do together our short practice to help your nervous system step out of comparison and into the present. Look around and name 3 neutral objects. And now take 6 breaths with longer exhales. Inhale normally and exhale a little longer. And the last one. And if you need more space, pause. And then the last step is a sentence of validation. Place a hand on your chest or upper arm if that feels neutral. And say to yourself, my nervous system adapted to what I lived through. And then I don't have to compare my pain to deserve support. And notice if anything softens, even slightly. So if you'd like support as you listen through this series, check my website for the free resources offered for both those affected by trauma and grief and those supporting them. In the next episode, we'll move into early imprint trauma with pre-verbal trauma. What the body can carry when experiences happen before we have words. Thanks for listening to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. If you'd like to be updated on future episodes, please subscribe to my newsletter on nataliehimmelrich.com. If you need grief support, please contact me for a 30 minutes free discovery session. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. To support this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. And remember to keep breathing. I promise it will get easier.